This is Tracy.
This is Samantha.
This is The Suspended Sentence.
Grab your latte and join us as we enter Season 2, starting January 1st of 2024.
A year packed full of serial killers that you may or may not have ever heard of.
Thanks for being there.
Stay safe.
Welcome to the D.E.A.D podcast, where I discuss all things spooky and weird. I am Desi, and today I'll be talking about El Duende. Let's get started. Hey everyone, how is everyone doing tonight? I hope y'all are doing good. I am not drinking anything tonight. I was feeling under the weather this past week and a little bit in the weekend, so I'm taking medicine and I'm not drinking anything. I think it's going away, but I'm just glad it wasn't so bad that I couldn't record. But I am wearing my Halloween t-shirt. It says Halloween at the top, and then it has Michael Myers on it. So I will be sure to post a picture of that. Tonight I'm going to be talking about El Duende, and this was a recommendation to me by a friend, and so thank you for that recommendation. I always welcome recommendations, so feel free to send me a DM or an email if you have any recommendations for episodes. And it can be anything. It can be folklore, it can be a haunted place, it can be an urban legend, it can be true crime, it can be a horror movie recommendation, it can be anything. So feel free to either DM me or email me if you have any recommendations. I would love that. And also, tonight's featured trailer on this episode will be from the Suspended Sentence podcast. They had my trailer featured this past week on their new episode about Ed Kemper. It was the sweetest, most kindest shout out ever. I definitely got a little bit teary-eyed when I heard it. It was so very sweet, and I'm very thankful for them and for that sweet shout out. Make sure y'all check out their podcast as well. It's great. And so I think those are all the announcements. Beware, a Latin American mother told her children before they went to bed. He's out there, waiting for the right moment. El Duende will take you away in the middle of the night to his cave in the middle of the forest. He will keep you there, and no one will know because you will be deep in the forest where nobody can hear you scream. According to legend, this elf-like creature either dwelled in the forest or lived inside children's bedrooms. It is said that when the opportunity arises, El Duende will lead children deep into the forest to his cave, or will come out of the walls to clumsily clip a sleeping child's toenail, most often taking the entire toe off. With such a warning, no wonder why El Duende is feared and viewed as an evil entity. But nothing is that simple with this legend. And if you get lost and need some help, another mother may say, El Duende will be there to guide you to safety. In other words, the same entity that is viewed as evil and or mischievous by some is considered a good spirit who protects lost hikers, children, and critters in the forest. To this day, many believe that El Duende is an actual creature similar to famous cryptids such as the chupacabras and Bigfoot, lurking in the night throughout the countryside. It is also said that El Duende is a mythical creature. The name Duende roughly translates to elf or goblin, and is often used to describe mischievous and magical beings. According to this legend, El Duende is a small humanoid creature that lives in the forest and is known for its ability to transform into red clay. In some stories, El Duende is portrayed as a protector of the forest and its inhabitants. He punishes those who harm the animals and plants in the forest, and rewards those who show respect and kindness. Another version says the term duende comes from the Spanish word dueño de casa, which means owner of the house. The creature is often depicted as a small, mischievous, goblin-like being with magical powers. According to historical accounts, the origins of El Duende can be traced back to medieval Spain, where it is believed to be a protector of the home. It is also believed that El Duende could bring good luck and fortune to those who treated it kindly. Over time, the legend of El Duende spread to other parts of the world, including Latin America. In Latin American culture, El Duende has become a significant figure in folklore. It is believed that these creatures have the power to shapeshift and can take on various forms, including animals and plants. They can either be good or evil. They are said to live in the forest and are known to be attracted to children. Parents often warn their children to be careful when playing in the forest, as El Duende is said to be waiting for the right moment to take them away. El Duende is known for being mischievous and unpredictable. They are said to be tricksters who enjoy playing pranks on humans and animals alike. They are also known to be fiercely protective of their homes and families, and will not hesitate to defend themselves if they feel threatened. They are said to be particularly active at night, when they can be heard making noise and causing mischief. El Duende is said to possess a variety of magical powers and abilities. They are known for their ability to move objects with their minds, and can often be seen rearranging furniture or other household items. Additionally, they are known to have the power of invisibility and can disappear at will. The description of the creatures was that of being 3 or 4 feet tall, with heavy shoulders, long arms, brown hair, flat yellowish faces, and long hair down the back of the neck and back. The Mayans believed in a deity that looked like a very small man wearing a big hat and nothing else. According to their myths, this deity roamed the forest. This being supposedly came out of hiding to place gifts before temples. While this version of the Duende legend gives one the impression that it is a myth among the tribal people of Central America, the truth is that the Duende legend has many of its roots in Europe. El Duende's origin was the Iberian Peninsula. He was a magical being who either did good or bad. Most often, he was mischievous. He was akin to elves, woodland spirits, goblins, and leprechauns. Most notable, he was 3 foot tall and wore a big red hat and clothing made from animal hide. Also, as mentioned before, he either lived in a cave deep in the forest or somewhere in the walls of a child's bedroom. On top of that, he whistled, usually while strolling through the forest. As legend has it, if one were to hear him whistle, he or she better get out of the forest or be lost in it forever. As Spanish and Portuguese colonists began expanding their empire into the New World and beyond, they spread the stories of El Duende to the indigenous people. As a result, El Duende became a worldwide phenomenon that was combined with folklore from the indigenous people of Latin and South America, the Philippines, and Guam. And depending on where the stories are told, El Duende is either a benevolent force or an evil entity. In places such as Guam or Belize, he will kidnap kids. In other places, he is protecting them. In other cases, he is guarding the forest and animals from wrongdoers. Some physical features were also added. He had a cane or a long beard. Most often, El Duende served as a warning to children who misbehaved and didn't listen to their parents. Now, I have 3 supposed accounts of interactions with El Duende, so I'm going to read those now for y'all. The first one. Well, I was 4 or 5 at the time, and I was playing hide and seek with the children my mom used to babysit. I decided to hide at the side of my bed, which was right next to a wall. While I was hiding, I had one of my legs under the bed. At this moment, I felt great pain in my leg. It felt as if someone had grabbed it in a very forceful way. I remember looking under the bed right away and seeing nothing, but still feeling that force in my leg, so I kicked in the direction I felt the force was coming from. As soon as I did that, I felt relief in my leg and quickly ran away. I ran to my dad and told him what had happened, but he said it was just my imagination. As soon as he told me that, I showed him my leg, which had a clear mark which looked like a really small hand had made it. We never really spoke about it until years later, when I asked him if he remembered what had happened to me. That's when my dad explained to me what might have been what attacked me. My family comes from Mexico, where the belief of duendes, or gnomes, or elves is very strong. Duendes are small humanoid creatures that enjoy the company of children, but are very aggressive towards them. They kidnap these children and force them to become their playmates, and if these children don't meet their standards, they brutally hurt them. My dad believes that maybe one of these duendes was trying to get me, but failed when I managed to fight back and escape. He states that the reason I didn't see it was because I was a child with a strong soul that was not meant to be taken by this thing. Therefore, I wasn't granted with the ability to see this thing. I'm not sure I believe in everything my dad told me, but I do know what happened to me is a thing I will never forget. This experience has made me curious. Has anyone else gone through something similar or knows more about these duendes? The second story. Alright, the first paranormal experience happened to my cousin. When we had gone to Mexico one summer, back in 2006 or 2007, I was about 9 years old and she was about 14 years old. Whenever we would go to Mexico, we would always stay with one of my uncles in his home, but would have sleepovers all the time. Since all of the cousins wanted to hang out together, we would arrange giant sleepovers at our aunt's house, since she had the biggest living room that would fit more than 5 people on the floor in sleeping bags. One thing that I want to make super clear is that my aunt's house is one of the scariest homes my cousins and I have ever seen. It is a beautiful 2-bedroom home with a giant dining room, a study, a huge living room, a giant backyard and front yard. It was the typical Spanish-looking hacienda that has 2 guest houses, one in the front yard and one in the backyard. Even though it is a beautiful home, I have always felt scared being alone in her house. I have many other scary stories that have happened to my cousins in that house, but those are for another day. During one of the nights that we were going to sleep over, my cousins and I had all positioned our sleeping bags so that our heads would face towards my aunt's backyard where her water fountain was, and our feet faced the doors that led to the front porch area. We all got tired around midnight, so we all fell asleep except for my cousin. She said that while she tried to go to sleep, she immediately began to hear children laughing. She said that she could hear them all laughing and that she knew that they were near the fountain since she could hear them super close. She said that she immediately closed her eyes and did not open them because she was scared that she was going to see something she did not want to see. She immediately knew that it was something sinister because the children laughing did not sound like normal children. and the laughter made her skin crawl. Eventually, she ended up falling asleep and then told us all of this the next day while we had breakfast. After telling my aunts and uncles, they told us that the laughter my cousin had heard were from the duendes and not from children. From then on, she requested to sleep in one of the bedrooms with my mom because she was super afraid of seeing or hearing the duendes again. Thankfully, it never happened to her again. Mind you, there were no cousins younger than my brother, who was 7 years old, and he was knocked out. Okay, the third and final story. My aunt is around 40 years old, and when this story happened, she was about 10, and her sister was a bit younger than her. So this story happened around the early 90s in Mexico. Before I get into the story, I want to talk more about the duendes and what they were known to do. My aunt grew up hearing that the duendes would mark you when you would sleep, and after a few nights of this, they would then lure you away until you would get lost. She shared that this began to happen to her grandma, and after a few nights of being marked, she disappeared and has never been found. My aunt shared that her aunts and uncles have spent 30 years looking for their mother and have never found her. They all claim that the duendes are at fault for their missing mom and do not want to give up until they find her. My aunt also shared her personal experience with the duendes. She said that one late afternoon, she was outside playing with her sister near a ditch. All of a sudden, they heard voices calling them over, and when they looked at who was calling them, they saw duendes. They said they saw two little creatures about 10 feet away, and her sister wanted to follow them, but she stopped her. My aunt told her sister that they needed to walk back to their house and tell their mom what had happened. When they got back home, their mom explained what could have happened to them and told them that they were not allowed to be outside once it was nighttime again. That brings me to the end of this episode. Thanks for listening to the D.E.A.D podcast. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at the D.E.A.D podcast. Also, feel free to send in your stories, episode suggestions, or feedback at the deadpodcast1@gmail.com, or send me a DM on Instagram. If you enjoyed this show, please rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you are listening on, and be sure to come back next week for my next episode.